Okay, so Jay, I know you ran for this position last year. What things are you doing different for your campaign this year?
The number one thing that we did differently this year was go to the students to get our platform. Kiana and I came up with the slogan, "Have your voice heard," but then we thought, how can we really bring that to the students? So we gathered concerns all before campaigning and really wanted to get what they wanted from student government, and then we built our AAA plan, which of course is accessibility, acknowledgement, and action from that.
Okay. And Keanu, what would you say to someone that is against the push for D1 because they don't believe that Tarleton could actually compete with bigger schools? What would you say to that?
Tarleton's growing if we like it or not. So my point is that going D1 is just that step to help us expand and grow because it's going to get there. So we need problems that we're going to face in the future. We're just earlier. We're putting out fires before they're started.
Would you agree that there's a harder road ahead going D1? And do you think it's worth it?
I personally think it is worth it. I don't know about harder. It is going to be a lot of work, but that's my view on it.
All right. And Jay, could you explain your AAA platform?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, like I said, it's accessibility, acknowledgement, and action. Accessibility, we really want to make SGA as visible as possible. We want to bring it to the students so they know they can come back to us and really establish the dialogue. Next is acknowledgement. Once we have these concerns, we really want to work within SGA to come up with the best possible solution to these problems. And then next is action. We can talk about the problems and we can gather concerns all day, but without action, it's fruitless and really nothing gets done for the students, which is why SGA exists.
Okay, and Keanu, you talked earlier in the debate about helping the homeless in the community. How do you plan on carrying out that action?
Well, right now, like I said, if there is, it's little support. So just maybe starting basic small things on donations, maybe a great dream goal would be have a shelter somewhere where maybe they could get meals or supplies.
So if you were elected, are you planning on a full-out campaign for the homeless, or is that kind of?
I think it's going to go into one of the go into our service issue on election.
Okay. And then last question for you, Jay. A lot of people think that SGA is separate from students. How are you going to bridge that gap between them?
Like we said, we really want to reach out to students, and we really want to provide some fresh ideas. Like we said at the debate, like it can be simple stuff like running around campus in neon shirts if you're on exec council or in Senate or House, or you can have a chalkboard outside of the student government office. And SGA has kind of been entrenched in like we're going to do things this way, but we really want to stir it up so students really generate some interest and really know how to get their voice heard within SGA.
Okay, that's all I have. Good luck on the election, guys. Okay, so Emrys, could you explain the bylaws you were talking about throughout the debate, and why is that SGA's biggest problem right now?
Okay, one of the reasons that we're really concerned about the bylaws is because since there aren't any written for those three chambers, the judicial, the freshman representative council, and the executive branch, that means in years to come, if students have questions, they don't know where to get a documented answer. One of the things that came up in the Constitution this time around was the idea of a ranking, an executive ranking that the president would file with his advisor's office, and in the case that the president or the vice president could not be reached, this is the order that we would approach the executive team. But since there aren't any executive bylaws, you don't know what positions would be on the executive team.
Right.
So that's a problem.
Yeah, right.
So we would like to write those bylaws so that there is, if not set positions, at least a set number of positions on the executive council, so that we can clarify the fact that freshman representative council votes in both the Senate and the House, but our Constitution clearly says no one gets to vote in both the Senate and the House.
Right.
And the fact that the judicial branch doesn't actually have express rules and express position and express jobs. And we'd like to clarify that through documentation.
Okay, so will these bylaws help you reconstruct the House of Representatives like you were talking about?
That's a separate set of bylaws.
Okay.
That would be bylaws for the legislative branch and bylaws for the House and bylaws for the Senate. We'd have to amend all three of them, but the bylaws can be amended at any time, unlike the Constitution. So we'd prefer to make these changes within the bylaws, so if the students don't like them later on, they can change them with a much easier process than the Constitution, which has to be voted on by the whole student body.
Right. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, now Charlie, the other candidates have greatly promoted their campaigns throughout this election. How do you think this will affect your campaign?
I feel that we have equally greatly promoted. It's not about how many followers you have on Twitter. I feel we have a good Facebook following, and we've been releasing at least 4 videos, a few of them that I've been editing, but I just feel it's not about how many followers that you have on a site to
Right.
get elected.
And it's not about yard signs, it's about the communication that we have with each of the organizations.
Right, and you were speaking about the videos you've made. Where can students go and find those? On your Facebook page?
Yes, it's
Okay.
Guy and Keenan for Student Body Vice President and President.
Okay, great. And then, okay, Imris, you said that you were against concealed handguns on campus. It's been kind of a toss-up between those. And so can you explain why you're not for this?
It doesn't really matter if I'm for it or against it. I personally am, because I wouldn't feel, more guns on campus doesn't make me feel safer than less guns on
Right.
campus. But it doesn't really matter how I personally feel. What matters is how the students feel, and what matters is that Charlie and I have already started acting on this by talking to the senators and getting legislation already written. We're not waiting till the symposium. We're not waiting until our term takes office to take initiative on this. We're working on it now,
Right.
so that we can have those students' voices heard.
And Charlie, can you explain how y'all's plan on oh wait, no, I already asked that, sorry. Why did you both decide to run for these positions?
I feel, first of all, Emrys asked me first. And, you know, I felt that I wanted to move up in a little bit of leadership in student government. And I feel becoming part of student body vice president was the best way to do that. I'm a very hard worker, like Emrys said in the debate. And I feel we complement each other's strengths very well, and we're very qualified for this position.
Okay. Mhm.
I wanted to, because Charlie and I, like I said, that we started out as House and Senate members, and we moved up as secretaries of both those chambers and leaders of these chambers, that this is the next logical progression. And the fact that Charlie and I have all this experience in the legislative branch makes us uniquely qualified for this position, because we understand both how to run a chamber, how to run a team, because chambers are teams, but also how the legislative side works, because legislation is how things get done in SGA.
Right.
It's just simple, it's as simple as that.
Right. Well, I thank you guys.
Yes, thank
Good
you so
luck.
much.
I appreciate it. Chance, what did you do to prepare for this debate?
For this debate, one of the biggest things that we've done was just come together as a team and talk about the different topics. And me and Alyssa have been really working together over the last 3 or 4 months on different things. And so having that background with her and knowing where she stands on a lot of things and talking a lot and just building a relationship between her and I, that's been the biggest way to help us prepare for this debate.
Okay. And Alyssa, if elected, what is the first thing you and Chance will do to make changes to?
The first thing we want to do is create an organization relations person on our executive staff. And what this person's job will do is to help organizations in any and every way possible to help them succeed. And this position will really help to connect the student body to SGA and help SGA connect the student body to administration, so that there's a better flow of information and more communication throughout all of campus.
And that brings me to my next question. What will you do to bridge the gap between students and SGA? Is that your plan?
Yes, the organization relations, and then also the restructuring of House and expansion of Senate. There's a lot of different ways that SGA can get more students' voices heard, and we really want to work with members of that chamber and know what they want out of it and help them succeed.
Okay.
And also just SGA having a presence on campus is one of the biggest ways, because a lot of people don't know what SGA does, and therefore they don't know how SGA can help. And so that's one of the biggest things. We want SGA to have more of a presence on campus. That way, when you have a problem, you know who you need to go talk to.
Okay, so, you know, they're discussing all these athletic fees going on, and what would you say to students who are against this?
I would say to students that are against this that we actually had a meeting with Coach Fowler, and we're talking to him about this, and I thought it was so interesting that he supports this, but not because it's going to help him and his program, but because it's going to help Tarleton. And the way we kind of talked, and one of the big things was that athletics, more than just a football game or a basketball game or those kinds of things, athletics is a great way for Tarleton to advertise itself. So by us going to different sporting events and doing these different things, we're advertising for Tarleton, and that's advertisement that Tarleton really can't pay for, and that it really allows students from all over the nation to really see Tarleton and know that we're here.
If we do move to D1 and Tarleton is not as competitive as the bigger schools, do you think that would hurt our reputation even more, or, you know, have a bigger advertising like you were talking about?
There's a lot of pros and cons to this, and yes, it could hurt us a little more. I've talked to several athletes, and they feel like they're ready. They feel like the programs are ready, and that we can compete at the D1 level. When I was in 8th grade and going to 9th grade, when I was in junior high going to high school, maybe wasn't as prepared, but when I got to high school, I stepped it up and I learned things, and I became stronger and a better individual because of that. And I think Tarleton will experience the same kind of growth if we go D1.
Okay. And, gun laws are really becoming famous
Mhm.
around the U.S. and communities. So, and they asked a question there about a possibility of allowing students to have concealed handguns on campus.
Right.
And you both were against it, as well as the other candidates. And I was just wondering if you could explain your views on that.
We actually weren't against it. We really try not to spout our own opinions because our agenda isn't what matters. It's the students, and it's what the students want. And if the students want guns on campus, then we need to find a way to help them accomplish that. If the students don't want guns on campus, we need to find a way to keep them off.
Okay.
There's the way we want to accomplish handling conceal and carry and all the stipulations that come with it is really to go to the students and ask their opinion and then do whatever we need to make their views happen.
So you two would be willing to put your own personal views aside for the students?
And I think any vice president and president should. It's good to have opinions about things, but it's not your opinion that matters, it's the students.
Right.
So.
All right. Thank you so
Okay,
much. I
thank you.
appreciate both
Thank
of
you very
y'all.
much.
Good luck.
Thank you.